My name is Erin Akrid. I'm a data science manager at DataKind, and I'm leading the learning and synthesis portion of our work with Omidyar Network that we're talking about today. I want to start by addressing some logistics. In the presentation, I'll be leaving a few opportunities to ask questions. You may have noticed that you don't have microphone access. What we will be using is the Q&A functionality in Zoom to surface your questions. So as they come up, feel free to enter questions for me and the project team, and we'll address them throughout the presentation. And you can see on this slide where the Q&A button should appear. Now, without further ado, as our founder, Jake Porway, likes to say, we live in revolutionary times. And what that means is that we're living in a data revolution. Our activities are increasingly moving to the digital world where they can be quantified and tracked. We're also covering our entire globe in sensors, satellites, and other data collection devices to measure our planet in a myriad of new ways. And this is exciting because these new instruments mean we have vast and often untapped sources of granular data. What's more, the democratization of computing technology and the interconnection of the internet means we have more opportunity than ever to apply data science to new data sets to learn more about our planet and society. DataKind exists to leverage these data sets. We partner with social sector experts to amplify their work in the service of humanity. In our 6-year history, we've become a global organization, completing more than 200 data science projects, benefiting more than 150 organizations tapping the digital reservoirs in innovative ways. From helping Amnesty International predict human rights violations from urgent action alerts, to using satellite imagery to help the World Bank estimate poverty, to using open city data to help the American Red Cross predict where fires are most likely to occur. In the extractives industry, innovative uses of digital reservoirs means that NASA may have had specific uses of the resulting data in mind when they launched their satellites. But just as we repurposed that data to estimate poverty, today we'll be introducing how we're leveraging the data to help detect irregular mining activity. Or, in the case of the other project you'll hear about, the information may not be new. Extractives contracts have been around for quite some time. But in their digital and connected format, we can leverage data science techniques to help make reviewing them significantly more efficient. All of this is to illustrate that DataKind has become a leader in the data science for good movement, helping our social sector partners join the digital revolution that we're now a part of. And DataKind's partnership with the Omidyar Network has in a very big way enabled us to grow into that leader by providing operating funds for us to deliver over $17 million in pro bono data science consulting service to social change organizations around the world. Our latest partnership with the Omidyar Network is represented so far by several months of collaboration with Omidyar Network investees from Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment, Global Witness, Natural Resource Governance Institute, Open Oil, Publish What You Pay, and the Transparency and Accountability Initiative, sourcing challenges in the extractive industry. Challenges like, if and how could we develop early warning system for illegal mining? Is it possible to recognize and generate red flags for corruption? How does one understand the components of a fair contract? And can we predict negative outcomes for extractive operations? We've distilled these challenges into 2 projects and have brought you together today to share learnings from scoping data science projects for the extractives industry. Our hope is at the end of the engagement, Omidyar grantees and other social sector actors will operate more effectively and efficiently to combat government and industry corruptions, learning what they have in this series of webinars. So I'm going to discuss the industry pain points that inspired the projects we've settled on. Then I'll introduce the projects themselves. Then we'll discuss what we as data scientists and our partners as industry subject matter experts have learned from the scoping of these projects. To determine where to apply our data science toolkit, we first needed to determine the pain points that exist in the extractives industry. One set of pain points is related to Extractives contracts themselves. Industry practitioners wanted to simplify the review of lengthy contracts and more quickly understand whether they are fair or not, which of course DataKind doesn't have the expertise to assess, but our legal partners, given significant resources of time, do have that. Another set of pain points is related to understanding where irregular mining activity is taking place. Some follow-on research questions exist around the economic and environmental impacts of irregular mining activity on the local communities, both perceived and actual, positive and negative. A third set of pain points arose around the lack of a central repository where all Extractives-related data might be collected, integrated, and aggregated. We've since found MapX, a tool by the United Nations Environmental Program, which in part alleviates a lot of the problems practitioners were facing in this area. So, to address the first pain point related to gauging the fairness of Extractives activity, we first plan to use GDELT, the global database of events, language, and tone, to get local perceptions upon where further investigation, the data didn't live up to its expected functionality. Other areas that we tried to address the pain points included analyzing radio content, similar to what was done with the UN Global Pulse in Uganda, to get at public sentiment. We even considered monitoring payments for smart contracts with blockchain technology. But the idea that rose to the top for its feasibility and usefulness was to analyze the repository of extractive contracts on resourcecontracts.org and enrich the metadata about these contracts using machine learning and natural language processing. To address the second pain point related to determining where irregular activity is taking place, and then gauging its environmental and social impact, such as influence on conflict and corruption, our first approach was to combine datasets, then leverage NOAA's Nighttime Lights database as a proxy for economic impact. But this dataset turned out to not be granular enough for our purposes. So for the second project, we're combining data sources to attempt to detect surface mines with satellite imagery, from which our on-the-ground partners will then be able to determine where mining activity is outside of concession or was never properly contracted in the first place, then merge this information with conflict data and environmental data, which would enable us to better understand social and environmental outcomes of irregular mines, from which our partners could advocate for policy change. Now, to dive a little deeper into these projects. Those working in the extractive industry governance aim to help local communities benefit from their country's endowments of oil, gas, and minerals. One of the ways they do this is by assessing 100-page extractive industry contracts for things like fiscal governance and environmental reparations. But certainly this is a time-consuming, manual, and subjective process, usually performed by legal experts. Automatic generation of metadata and annotations would allow those reviewing the contracts, including those without legal training, to quickly find relevant contracts and clauses within these contracts in order to focus on what is different about one contract compared to a standard, or make the assessment based on the higher level analysis of metadata as opposed to an extensive word-for-word comparative review. So, for this project, we'll leverage the publicly available extractive industry contracts to extract data using natural language processing techniques and train a suite of machine learning models which will assist legal reviewers, journalists, regulators, and community activists by identifying things like auto-tagging of certain types of clauses like stabilization clauses or royalties clauses, where and how a given contract differs from a template, geospatial linkage of extractive projects which occur within similar territories might be another thing we can identify with data science. The location in the contracts themselves of redactions or incomplete publicly available sections. And finally, one other thing we could identify is the additional metadata like named entities, language detection, and general text mining statistics. So this is our first project, which is well on its way to delivering on insights to contract reviewers. We settled on our second project for the following reasons. Irregular mining activities are known to have both positive and negative effects. For example, irregular mining activity may provide employment to tens of millions of poor in developing countries, although their impact is mixed and hard to track. In some cases, the activity is thought to fuel conflict, for example, in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's often conducted under poor environmental practices, for example, the use of mercury for gold mining, and it leads to mixed social outcomes like child labor as well as higher family incomes. So to get at environmental and social impact, the industry first needs to know where irregular mining activity is occurring. DataKind's goal for this project is to successfully train image recognition models to detect irregular mining activity in Landsat and Sentinel imagery. Industry partners at Global Witness will be able to confirm our models. Then, by joining the industry mining information with data from Global Forest Watch and International Peace Information Service, the industry will be better informed of irregular mining and its social and environmental impact. I'm going to pause here for questions before we jump into the discussion on scoping these projects. So feel free, if you have any questions, to enter them in the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar, and I will address them as they come up. Alrighty, I'll move along to the scoping portion of this presentation now. Based on 6 years of experience, DataKind has learned that scoping high-impact data science projects is a process of gathering 6 components, not just the data and data scientists operating in a vacuum. A well-formed problem statement that addresses pain points and captures how impact will be made is one component. The data, of course, which must be audited to ensure it will support the problem statement, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And the partners, funding partners, a combination of staffed and volunteer data scientists, subject matter experts or project advisors who will help advise our data scientists, and finally, the social actors whose efforts will be amplified by the work of the data scientist. I want to take this opportunity to thank the project partners who have joined DataKind on these projects. Of course, DataKind's core competence is in scoping impactful data science projects, convening the funders, data scientists, and subject matter experts on who we rely for industry expertise, and the social actors who implement our solutions in the real world. To assemble these 6 components, we took the following actions. Last summer, we initiated the partnership with Omidyar Network, our funding partner, the first of the 6 components, who has extensive subject matter expertise in the extractives industry. In the fall, we surfaced pain points and project concepts. DataKind hosted a convening with our data scientists, technical leads, the second of the 6 components, and subject matter experts, the third component, in the extractives industry to provide use cases for the impact data science can add to advancing the sector. This resulted in first drafts of the problem statement, or the 4th component that we were seeking to assemble. Over the winter and spring, we worked to verify the data and pivot the projects as necessary. We sourced and audited the data, the 5th of the 6 components, to ensure that we could do what we intended with the data to address the pain points. In April, we hosted a webinar presenting the projects as they stood and issued a call for industry partners. These are the folks DataKind refers to as social actors, the 6th and final component, and we brought them together to refine the scope of the projects for adoption and impact. That scope refinement took place in May and June when the drafts of the problem statement were finalized with the help of social actors to ensure that the projects would have their desired impact. In July, we put out a call for data science partners to help do the analysis and advise on a data science approach. And now we're in the data science execution mode, which started in late July with data exploration. In this phase, we'll do the data modeling, then solution handoff around the end of the calendar year. As you can see, we have and may have experienced yourselves, scoping is a huge amount of the effort, almost double the time investment it actually takes to do the data science work. So now we're going to talk about the learnings from the many months of preparing the project for handoff to our data scientists. To get to the projects we presented today, DataKind found the most useful questions to ask were those listed here. Put another way, we sought to answer where and how could we amplify the effort of industry practitioners? How might we refine the scope so that we can increase likelihood of achieving the desired impact? And related, what risk would we be taking on, and how might we decrease the likelihood of these risks actually bearing fruit? In addition to asking these questions, the project teams arrived at some common realizations that we want to share with you today. The industry experts on our teams saw fairly early on that the data sets we expected to deliver great insights didn't actually live up to these expectations. Data needs to be replicable to be trustworthy, and at a fine enough resolution to observe the phenomena in question. Neither the nighttime lights or GDELT databases upon which our original problem statements relied met both of these criteria. But the project teams also landed in areas where repeat manual tasks could be automated with the tools of data science to speed up the arrival at insights. For the satellite imagery project, rather than having to go out and visit the individual mining sites, we aim to be able to do that automatically with pre-existing data and data science techniques. For the contract data project, certainly humans could continue reviewing these contracts, which takes a significant amount of time. But if we're able to automate the process of determining where there are redactions, where there are anomalies from the original contracts, then we might be able to speed up this process. So we believe that automating repeat manual tasks can be a great opportunity for data science. In addition, several ethical quandaries came up as we scoped these projects. First, classifying contracts as fair or unfair while attempting potential outcome is something we wanted to steer clear of. We seek to democratize the use of data and partner with experts who can better assess and act upon whether a contract is fair or not, with additional insights from the data science tools. Second, irregular mining that is indeed illegal is still a livelihood for people in areas well endowed with natural resources. DataKind's not in the position to act upon the discovery of illegal mining. Again, we seek to democratize the use of data and partner with experts who can better assess if irregular mining activity is indeed illegal, and then what the best course of action is for the good of the planet and humanity. These considerations are likely near and dear to the minds of the industry experts, but something we as data scientists must consider in advance. Finally, I wanted to close with some findings and guiding principles for scoping data science projects in the extractives industry. First is starting with the pain points, assessing whether the fairness of a contract is the pain point in one of our projects, and there's a need for expertise, and it's still a time-consuming process. Had we started with the data first, we may have ended on a project that, while very interesting from a data science perspective, wouldn't actually have an impact in the real world. Second guiding principle for scoping is that finding problems can be harder than finding solutions. If you remember the timeline, we spent months scoping and coordinating and socializing the projects, and we will have fewer months taken on the data science side of things. And we pivoted a number of times on the project plan to arrive at an area where the data science would support the problem statement and the problem statement would support the impact that we were trying to achieve. Finally, digital data is any information, be that satellite imagery, scanned documents, digital traces. These are all data sources that are equally valid and applicable and important for our work. And one of the big points that I want to drive home is that there's a lot of data and the data science techniques exist, and bringing these two components together, we'll be able to do impactful data science in the extractives industry. So now I want to open it up to the participants, see if there are any other learnings from anyone, and call out that this Learning Out Loud webinar that you're attending today is a pilot program. We'd love feedback, either now or over email, on what participants valued and what you'd like to see in the next Learning Out Loud webinar. So I'll pause here for questions that you can enter in the Q&A area. So we have one question here. What did the participating organizations find most surprising about this process of using data in their work? I think I would actually answer, we don't have speaker privileges for some of the participating organizations, but having worked with them over the past several months, I would say the expectation and the promise of data sets. There's, in some cases, a lot of data. From some perspectives, there's a lot of data available. But from some other perspectives, that data may not have the promise that it does. So I think it was surprising to some of the organizations that there's this GDELT database out there that promises to be able to help people understand sentiment of data. There's the nighttime lights database that promises to be used in a myriad of ways to be able to assess potentially economic impact of certain industries. That's a very Extractives view of how the nighttime lights data might be used. But there were problems with each of these data sets. One of the surprises around the GDELT database is, for us to use data in an ethical way, we need to ensure a couple things. One, that we can continually regenerate the database so that it wasn't created in a way that we can't trust it and recreate that data source. Another way that another thing that we need to consider is, to what extent is the data going to be useful in its current format. So for the nighttime lights database, when we're trying to look at mines that may be on the order of ones or tens of square miles, and then the resolution of the database from the nighttime lights is at a much higher resolution, it may be very interesting, but we don't have matching resolutions. So for a couple of reasons, interesting data sources may not live up to their purported use case. And I think that was probably the most interesting thing that came up from the perspective of the participating organizations. We have another question here. When do we anticipate having findings to share? So our data scientists have started on the work. We actually have them on the call today. We are already finding some insights from the contract metadata enrichment project. We're successfully able to take a scanned contract, convert it into a machine readable data format, and be able to say, with a high level of success, here's where there are royalties clauses, here are where there's stabilization clauses. We have a handful of different types of clauses that we're trying to detect, and we're able to do that successfully at this point, starting with a scanned document. We're able to say things, detect the language used, standard specifications, like how much they're using a certain word. From there, as I mentioned, one of the things we want to do is to be able to say, where are there redactions? Where are there anomalous content that doesn't fit this traditional template, or where are there missing sections that don't fit the traditional template? These are types of insights that will take a little longer. We hope to have some early findings we're in late August now, probably around October or November. We'll have some insights there, and we'll continue updating anyone who's interested on what the status of our projects is. So if you are interested and you're not already on our getting updates from us about projects, please email me at erin@datakind.org, and I will continue to update you on insights. I'll be sending out approximately monthly updates on the findings of the projects. For the satellite imagery project, what Sina has done, Sina is the technical lead on that project. He's actually recruited a team of data scientists who will help do the classification work of determining, can we detect where satellite imagery where artisanal and small mines exist using satellite imagery. One of the things that was interesting about this project is that we needed very highly trained skills around using Google Earth Engine, geospatial techniques, and Sina has done a lot of that work and created a data set that his team of volunteer data scientists will be able to come and act on, and not need those highly unique skills of Google Earth Engine and geospatial analysis. So what Sina has done is created a data set that may or may not be useful to others for other purposes, but for our purpose will enable the data scientists to come and hit the ground running when they come and do the work. So that's where Sina's project is right now. But stay posted and let me know if you're not already getting updates, and I will add you to our list of updates. Are there any other questions that me or the project team can answer for you today? Again, if you have feedback on how this Learning Out Loud webinar was useful to you, we'd love to hear that. If there's other things that you would have liked to have heard, we'd love to hear that too. This is a pilot for us, and we are very interested in making it useful to industry practitioners. So if you do have feedback, you can send that to me at erin@datakind.org. And I will certainly get back to you as soon as possible. And then the last thing I want to close out with is that we'll invite you all to come back on October 21st. October 24th. That'll be the next Learning Out Loud webinar. And at that talk, we'll go through a little bit more into the data exploration and prototyping phases of the data science work. So if you want to hear a little bit more about, now that we've committed to using certain data sets, what are the nuances of positive and negative of working with those data sets, and what it's like to do the prototyping, that next phase of work that Sina has prepared his team of data scientists to work on. That's what we'll be discussing in detail, plus any feedback that you provide, we will be able to integrate that into the presentation as well. So if there are no other questions, again, Erin@datakind.org, ERIN. Thank you so much for attending today. Thank you for your questions. And we look forward to seeing you again on October 24th.